Good morning, everyone. Bishop Edevane and of my brother priests, deacons, seminarians, brothers and sisters in the Lord. In the Acts of the Apostles, we heard how the apostles said, "Brothers, select from among you 7 reputable men filled with the Spirit and wisdom." Well, today we have 6. I think one escaped, but we'll get him. Actually, they have 2 classmates in Rome, so we're very blessed by this class. In the Acts of the Apostles, we see that all of the deacons were either Greeks or Hebrews. Today, we have 6 different flavors here, representing the Catholicity of our church, and it is such a blessing for us. I greet all of you, especially those who are to be ordained and their loved ones, and some have come from afar. Queremos dar as boas-vindas aos lusófonos e também saludar a los hispanoparlantes que están aquí. We greet and thank in a very special way our seminary rectors, Monsignor Moroni and Father Tony Medeiros, the faculty staff, and also Father Dan Hennessy in the Vocation Office. Father Dan is the director of the Office of Vocations, and since vocations are everybody's business, we're all working for Father Dan. So please help him out, help to identify and invite young men to consider a priestly vocation. Today, these men are going to be ordained by the laying on of hands. They've come to this day because of the support of their families, their friends, their communities, their parish priests, and so many others who have worked to help them. You, my brothers, will be deacons of the Jubilee of Mercy and will have a full year of diaconal ministry as a prelude for your priestly ordination. Once when I was a young priest in Washington at the Centro Católico Hispano, the principal of Lincoln Junior High School, which was across the street, came bursting into my office, and she was practically in tears. She said that a riot had broken out in the cafeteria between the African American students and the Hispanic students, and could I please come and help to bring peace to the school? With some trepidation, I crossed the street with the principal and walked into the cafeteria. The students were in the throes of a food fight. French fries and other nondescript edibles were flying around like missiles. But as soon as I stepped into the room, the hostilities ceased. Many of the Hispanic students were my parishioners. I had baptized them, given them their first communion. I'm sure that they were horrified by the thought that I might report their behavior to their parents. The African American students, mostly Baptists, I'm sure had never seen a friar before. I found out afterwards that some of them thought I was a ninja warrior and that the white Franciscan cord betokened some proficiency in the martial arts. Uniforms can be helpful. We all have a tendency to romanticize and idealize the situation of the first Christians. We know that they held all things in common. They were assiduously united in the teaching of the apostles, in prayer, fellowship, and the breaking of the bread. They were of one mind and one heart. No one was in need because they shared all their earthly belongings to take care of one another. It all sounds great until a food fight breaks out in chapter 6 between the different ethnic groups within the church, namely those who spoke Aramaic versus those who spoke Greek. They were all Christians, all members of the church, all baptized, But when it came to the distribution of food for widows and orphans, it helped if you spoke Aramaic. You'd get a little more than the Greeks. The Greeks, however, did not take this lying down, and a controversy arose that occasioned a wonderful development in the life of the church, the creation of the Diaconate. Today's first reading from the Acts of the Apostles describes for us important events that mark the growth of the church through the extension of ordained Christian authority beyond the 12. The apostles' appointment of members of an aggrieved minority, the Hellenists, those Greek-speaking members of the community of faith, to oversee this aspect of community life that arouses their complaints, is an inspiring model of magnanimous pastoral leadership. Their example cautions us against tolerating cliques and communities in our parish in groups that inevitably lead to resentful outsiders and divisiveness that destroys genuine community. In this 6th chapter of the Acts of the Apostles, we see a model of responsive and non-defensive listening to grievances of those under the authority of the apostles. The apostles' wise response to the criticism of their ministry contributed to the continued growth and the spread of the church. If the first reading speaks to us about a crucial moment, the gospel speaks to us about a crucial hour. Indeed, at the beginning of John's Gospel, at the wedding feast of Cana, where Jesus works his first miracle at Mary's request, the Lord confides to his mother that his hour has not yet come. There are references throughout John's Gospel to Jesus' hour. Jesus was not prepared to work a miracle because his hour had not yet come. The Lord's enemies on another occasion were foiled in their attempts to kill him because his hour had not yet come. Jesus' hour is the hour of his death and suffering, but it's also the hour of his victory and his glorification. It's the hour when the Good Shepherd lays down his life so that there will be one flock and one shepherd. It's the hour when he is lifted up and draws all things unto himself. In today's gospel, Jesus declares that the hour has come. The tension created by the hour that had not yet come is resolved. The gathering at the hour of Jesus is also the glorification of the Son of Man. The Son of Man has already been associated with lifting up, with the self-gift of Jesus as a revelation of God. Jesus is about to be slain, but the hour of his death is his lifting up, his exaltation, his glorification, his self-gift for the life of the world. The image of falling, to speak of death, enables Jesus to associate the bystanders with his fruitful self-giving. Those who wish to come to eternal life must, like him, be prepared to lay down their lives in self-giving. The disciples of Jesus are called to reverse the attitude of Jesus' opponents, who are unable to accept the revelation of the Father in and through Jesus. They fail because they're clinging with closed fist to what is their own. They love their own lives. They make an absolute of what this world can offer, and thus they lose life. The one who is prepared to let go, to hate his life, has eternal life, a satisfying life, both here and in the hereafter. The disciple must be where Jesus is, and his self-gift in love is crucial. The disciple is invited to follow Jesus, to look beyond the absolutes of this world, and falling into the ground in a loving letting go will bear fruit and lead to the servants being honored by the Father. The definition of deacon is, of course, a servant. Your vocation, like that of your master, is to serve and not to be served. Your service will be a diaconia, by remaining close to Jesus, the suffering servant, who is our Messiah and Redeemer. Just as the first deacons were ordained to reestablish unity and peace within the community, you too must be men of reconciliation and unity. Like Jesus, you must express the mercy of the Father toward all those who are suffering, hungry, homeless, sick, lonely, imprisoned, and forgotten. The little ones, the blind, the lame, the halt, the publicans and prostitutes, the people on the fringes are the protagonists of Jesus' gospel and ministry. You must seek them with eyes of compassion to gather them into one flock. You are being ordained deacons in the Jubilee of Mercy. May mercy be the hallmark of your service as deacons and later as priests. As St. Paul declares in the second reading today, since we have this ministry through the mercy shown us, we are not discouraged. And St. Paul reminds us that it's not about us, it's about Jesus. For we do not preach ourselves, but Jesus Christ as Lord, and ourselves as your slaves for the sake of Jesus. But we hold this treasure in earthly vessels, that the surpassing power of God and be not from us. 1 week ago, we were here in this Cathedral of the Holy Cross celebrating an ecumenical service commemorating the Armenian Genocide that took place a century ago. Pope Francis has spoken so eloquently about the ecumenism of blood, the result of the witness of persecuted Christians, Catholics, Orthodox, and Protestants who have suffered persecution and laid down their lives in witness to their faith and fidelity to Jesus Christ. I was very touched talking to the Armenian Archbishop after the service, who told me that his grandfather was one of the martyrs in the genocide of 1915. He said his grandfather was the parish priest, and they crucified him, nailing him to the doors of his parish church. Pope Paul VI used to say that more than teachers, the church needs witnesses. The martyrs are the most eloquent of witnesses. As deacons, your task is not just to teach, but rather to be witnesses of the church's faith in the resurrection of Jesus Christ. The sacrifices and hardships that you embrace as part of your vocation add an important dimension to your ministry and proclaiming the gospel. The church needs for you to be witnesses willing to give your very life for the cause of the gospel. When people glimpse the joy and generosity in your hearts, they will come to embrace your message. Being a deacon is more than being a technician, a bureaucrat, or a professional. The distinction that Jesus makes is between the good shepherd and the hireling. For all his talent, efficiency, technical skill, for all his capacity to achieve and be successful in the moment of trial, of temptation, and of danger, the hireling abandons the flock. Your vocation is to be the good shepherd, one who puts the flock's interests ahead of your own, a shepherd who smells like the sheep because he is close to them, because he loves them, and is willing to lay down his life for them. And all of this because you love the divine Master, who in granting the gift of ordination is saying to you, as he said to Peter, "If you love me, feed my sheep." Today, April 30th, is an anniversary, a feast day of sorts, Because on April the 30th, 1997, a group of Hutu terrorists from the Orwellian-named National Council for the Defense of Democracy attacked the Roman Catholic seminary in Buta in southern Burundi at daybreak. The terrorists murdered 36 seminarians, along with 8 members of the seminary staff. The seminarians were ordered to separate into 2 groups, Hutu and Tutsi. It was clear that the terrorists wanted the Tutsis to die. The seminarians refused to identify which ones were Tutsi, and as a result, all were martyred. 8 of the seminarians were from Rwanda, 6 were from the Congo, 1 was from Nigeria, while the others were from Burundi. The seminarians had just completed their Easter retreat. Father Nicholas, the director of the seminary, commented on how transformative that retreat had been. He realized that something very powerful had happened in their lives without knowing exactly what it was. The way that they prayed and sang and lived their seminary life with a renewed enthusiasm and joy. And when the terrorists threatened them, rather than betray their brothers and run off, they preferred to stand together and to help their distressed brothers, knowing exactly what was going to happen to them. They died as martyrs of the fraternity, thus honoring the Church of Burundi, where many sons and daughters were led astray in hatred and in ethnic vengeance. The courage, great love, and deep faith of the seminarians was a striking witness to those hearts that had been poisoned by hatred and violence. The seminarians lived Jesus' teaching that greater love hath no man than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. Since your ordination is on this very auspicious anniversary of these martyrs of fraternity, I hope they will inspire you to stand with your brothers and be builders of unity and solidarity in a church and in a world where so many forces try to foment disunity, resentment, or indifference. In today's gospel, Jesus says, whoever loves his life loses it. The paradox is that by sacrificing our life for love, we achieve both happiness and eternal life. Our self-giving in a life of celibacy and availability for service, at times a challenging assignment, is our martyrdom, our witness that will strengthen the faith in our hearts and in the hearts of those we serve. In the reading from Acts, the apostles tell us that part of the rationale for expanding ministry is so that there'll be more time for prayer and the ministry of the Word. These 2 activities must be priorities in the life of all the ordained, even the deacons. It's not by accident that part of the diaconate ordination is the promise to pray each day and to be faithful to the liturgy of the hours. Without prayer, there is no ministry, only activity. Prayer is what allows the Spirit to act through us and deepens our friendship with the Lord that we share with others in our ministry. Have a rule of life, a game plan that will ensure time and space for God each day. The ministry of the Word is entrusted to you as deacons. Preach the gospel in season and out of season, when convenient and inconvenient. Always remember that you are ordained to be messengers of the glad tidings of the gospel. Let the blessing you receive before you proclaim the gospel always remind you, Domine sit in corde tui et labius tuis, ut digni competenter enuncias evangelium suum. May the Lord be in your hearts and on your lips, so that you might worthily and fittingly proclaim his gospel, digne, worthily, competenter, with competence. The ministry of the word begins by opening your mind and your hearts to the Scriptures, to nurture your own faith and love, and then you will be able to share the fruits of your prayer and reflection with others. Today, the Church entrusts to you the book of the Gospels with the clear declaration: receive the gospel whose herald you now are, believe what you read, teach what you believe, and practice what you teach. Yes, prayer and ministry of the word must be central in the ministry of deacons and as priests. And never forget that the essence of the diaconate is service. May your diaconate stole placed on your shoulder today be a reminder of the towel that Jesus used to wash the feet of his disciples. That towel is now entrusted to you. Serve the Lord with gladness. May your ministry fill you with joy and love that you will be able to share with all those that God puts in your path. And we commend your ministry to the loving intercession of the Mother of the Divine Shepherd, that your lives and ministries be a faithful reflection of the pastoral love of the Good Shepherd. God bless you.
Warning that they must be more than teachers, that the Church needs witnesses who give their very life. There is no greater love